Ah, yes, here we go. The sense of impending doom from Colts Nation is upon us, not for me, but for some, right? And it's always interesting to see how some fans react to losses like this and kind of who comes out of the woodworks, right? Because all of the doomers, all of the Colts fans who are always on the negative side, who are always calling for the end of this regime, have been waiting 2 months to have something bad to say about what it is that the Colts are putting out onto the field this year. All of the Daniel Jones haters, all the people who've been against him from the moment we signed him, have waited all this time to have a moment to tear him down and to talk about how he's reverted back to his old ways. In his only bad game of the year, the Colts now stand at 7-2, and the PTSD starting to kick in. Well, I think maybe for some people it's PTSD. For others, I just think they want to be right so bad about Daniel Jones, about Chris Ballard, that if it means the Colts losing and blowing the season proves them right, they'll take it, which, to be fair, I think is a little bit sad. Like, no one likes being right more than me, but I don't want to be right that bad. Like, I'd rather be wrong at that point. But for those of you guys who have PTSD, listen, I understand. What do I always say? As Colts fans, we have suffered, right? We've suffered. Not in the sense that we've been complete bottom feeders, right? That's one of the great misconceptions this fan base has. Sometimes we're so deep in the forest that we can't see the trees, but instead, it's more so that we've been so close so often, right? We've been the epitome not of awful, but of average, of mediocre even. And we've been so close and have blown it in epic fashion on so many occasions. Like as Colts fans, we've seen some shit in recent years, right? That's just the reality. So I get it. I got it, right? A game like this happens after we're all on our high horse and some people start losing their marbles. Like, it's totally understandable, but there does come a point where if you just zoom out a little bit and look at this thing objectively, what exactly did you want? Did you want 17-0, 16-1? Well, actually, yes. Yes, actually. Let me take that. That's exactly what we wanted, right? But what did you expect is more so my question, right? Like, that's just generally not how it goes. Now, the NFL is a very, very tough league, and on any given week, shit can happen. Like, you just look at this week. The Green Bay Packers lost at home to the Carolina Panthers this week. Patrick Mahomes completed 44% of his passes this week with all of his weapons out there, right? Rashee Rice, Travis Kelce, Xavier Worthy, all the guys that they have in Kansas City. But we wouldn't go on to say just because of this week that the Packers are a bad team or that Mahomes isn't an accurate quarterback, because it's just 1 week, right? So when you evaluate these types of things and you make definitive statements, you want to make sure that you're deferring to the overall pattern of the season, not just being a prisoner of the moment. And also, if we're to be fair, we can give the Steelers a little bit of credit, right? Like we did say coming in, they had players on that defensive side of the football, despite the team's performance on that side of the ball up to this point. They had some guys that warranted respect, and it's a defense, even though it's been bad this year, they have a culture and a history of great play. So you kind of had to get the feeling with how that offense has been playing this year, which has been pretty good, that at some point it would turn around for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And this was just one of those weeks for them, right? TJ Watt came out and played like TJ Watt. Cameron Hayward came out and played like Cameron Hayward. So when you look at Daniel Jones and the turnovers in a game like this, sure, it's not great. And sure, he had the fumbling issues in New York, but ultimately he hasn't done that with the Indianapolis Colts up until today. And he's definitely had moments throughout the course of the season where I would look where he's under duress and I say, oh man, like I've seen him in New York force a bad play in that situation. I've seen him make a boneheaded turnover in that situation, and he hasn't done it. So, yes, he does deserve a level of blame, and it's not to say he should be free from criticism, but that's ultimately where it ends, right? There's no need to make a larger statement about him and what it's going to be with the Indianapolis Colts. We're just not there yet, right? We're not there yet. If it becomes a pattern of behavior, then we can start to talk about that. But as of right now, I mean, come on, guys. Come on. The Colts have been a historically good offense all year with this guy at quarterback. Let's operate within reality here just a little bit, right? Let's be a little bit fair to this team, to our quarterback, to our offense. Another group taking some heat from the fan base right now is the offensive line. Now, I don't see anyone making the same statements there on the offensive line as they would be about a Daniel Jones in the sense of, oh, here it comes, they're going to be terrible. More so than people just saying they let us down in this game. And again, I think it's because they've built a great track record, right? Like, it's not just this season we've seen this offensive line be good. It's generally been a staple of this football team that we've been good up front, minus like an outlier year in, what was it, 2022 or whatever. So I think we're all willing to move past it. But as far as the Colts offensive line playing bad in this game, I'm not sure I saw it exactly the same way that you guys saw it based off of what I'm reading online. It definitely was not a great day for the offensive line, right? But I don't think it was about them playing bad in a vacuum. We'll talk a little bit more about what I saw there because I think there was more kind of the sum of its parts happening there on the offensive side of the ball. And then we'll also take some positive notes away from the game on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. And then we'll move on with the rest of our week. But before we do, you know what it is? I got to introduce the show. My name is Justin. This right here is the Ride the Bench Colts podcast. As always, ask anyone watching and enjoying the show. Go ahead, shoot a like. It's going to help me get out to as many Colts fans as humanly possible. Of course, subscribe if you want to be a part of the journey. We're on our way to 5,000 subscribers over here on the YouTube channel. So if you keep coming back, enjoying the show, perhaps it's your first day here and you're not minding what you're hearing, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. Never miss an episode again. Of course, audio listeners, leave a five-star review. Let the people know how much you're enjoying what it is that we're putting out over here. Every 5-star review helps. This show is nothing without the support from you guys. Yes, I'm the guy behind the microphone, but there's no one more important than you guys and kind of how you come in and support the show, right? So even if it's just listening, I appreciate that as well. But if you have the moment to like, subscribe, or leave that review, would be greatly appreciated. Of course, for all you guys that plan to engage in the comment section on YouTube, be civil with one another. I know we're a little upset. It's not a Victory Monday that we've come so used to this season, but be civil with one another, right? You don't know what the person on the other end of the keyboard is going through. Ultimately, we're all on the same team here, and that's the Indianapolis Colts. It's for the shoe over here. So back to business, back to what we're talking about, and I want to start on the offensive side of the ball, and let's break down what I saw here and a little bit about how it affected the offensive line's performance. So let's just kind of recap this, right? The Colts come out and they're doing what they always do, right? The MO for this team all season has been to pass the ball early and settle into the run. And ultimately, maybe it didn't start quite as good as it has started in other games, but they were doing what they did overall. Like, this could have very easily turned into a 14-0 game for the Indianapolis Colts, right? Pass to score, run to win is kind of that cliche that Shane Steichen said when he came in here. But we've never seen that be more true than it has been this season. And obviously it's worked great, right? Like, the Colts are 7-1 coming into this game, the best offense in football. So leave Shane Steichen alone for a day. I'm seeing some people already reverting back to the lazy analysis saying, oh, the play calling, it wasn't creative. It wasn't this. It wasn't that. He called the same game he always does, okay? Just because the players did not come out and execute doesn't mean that Shane Steichen wasn't doing his part. It's the same trap a lot of you guys fell into last year. Don't do it again. Learn from your mistakes, right? But I digress. While the game he called was the same as it usually is, the circumstances in this game were a little bit different than they've normally been. Generally speaking, yes, they've started passing and they've been able to settle into the run in the second half, but also they have not been down at 10 at halftime in, I don't think, any game this season. It certainly has been, if it has once maybe, but I don't even think it's happened. So coming out of the half, if you were going to get the ground game going, if you were going to settle in like you normally did, it was going to have to be early in that third quarter, right? Because eventually, if you're down enough points, you have to pass the ball more often to come back just due to the amount of time you have left in the game. Now, of course, you can get into nitpicking just how long they stuck to the run in the second half versus how they didn't. For example, the first drive of the second half, they come out running the football, right? And then they get a first down. And then on first down, after that, they go play action and get sacked for a loss of 10. I also wish that perhaps they were under center a little bit more often in this game to run the football. I just didn't see that quite enough. It's something that I think is really the strength of Jonathan Taylor. Like, he has ultimately grown in this Shane Steichen offense as a guy who can operate out of the shotgun and a guy that can operate in passing situations. But he's at his best when you get under center and let him run downhill. That's just the type of running back he is. But that's neither here nor there. Ultimately, when you look at what the Colts did here offensively from a play calling perspective, there was nothing egregious here, right? Like, again, you could always nitpick in hindsight, but in the flow of the game, there was really not a moment where I'm looking at Shane Steichen and saying, what the heck was that? So either way, that drive to open the third quarter happens that I just talked about. You punt it, you get a stop, and then you come out with a balanced drive, but then you throw the interceptions and the Steelers get it back, bring the game into the fourth quarter, score a touchdown, and now all of a sudden it's the fourth quarter and you're down 24-7, right? So at that point, your hopes of running the football in the second half are completely gone. So when you look at the game in its totality, I really do boil it down primarily to the turnovers, right? And then again, being down the whole game, because of that, you throw it more. And the Steelers front plays their best game of the year because there is a level of predictability, right? In the sense, once you kind of take the thought away of are they going to run it or are they going to pass it, you know, you got those aren't just some guys on the Pittsburgh defensive front, right? Like, as I said, TJ Watt, Cam Hayward, Derek Harmon is a first round pick from this year out of Oregon. He's a Buckeye, just like D Buck. So if you put them in a spot, again, where they know you're passing the football, your offensive line, just due to the lack of balance, is really kind of at a disadvantage right off the bat. So for me, yes, the offensive line didn't have their best day, but when you take all of those parts and put them together, I don't think it's so much about the individual unit or an individual player. I think the Colts offense kind of lost this game together as a unit, right? The same way they've done so to win games this year, and they've played together and done it in so many different ways. This was the opposite of what we've seen throughout the course of this season, but I'm not worried about it moving forward. I thought there was some good stuff that happened in this game too. Again, going into half down 17-7, it wasn't nearly as bad as the scoreboard showed. You just had a turnover issue going on, but some of the calls in the first quarter, like the fourth down where they showed QB sneak, they showed tush push, and then ran a sweep to Jonathan Taylor. That was an awesome play call. Another one, not that it was an offensive play, it was a special teams play, but I would imagine that Steichen had the kind of like the final say on calling it in that moment. That fake punt that they did on their own 30 or whatever, it was just the perfect moment to call that play. Of course, because they converted it, right? It becomes easy to say that. But the moment in the game was a great moment to do it. The Steelers had gotten a huge stop, right? And of course, that defense had been playing bad up to this point this year. And that was their first stop of the game. And you could kind of just feel the sigh of relief through the TV from that defense. I mean, even I had checked my phone, right? So it was an unpredictable moment to call that fake punt. And then boom, they come out there and Rodney Thomas runs it up the gut. It was just a moment. It was a good feel for the game, right? And a good feel for the energy in that moment. That was a great one. Later in the game, they pulled off a hook and ladder in the middle of the game where you essentially run a slant. You have a guy run underneath them, and then you sort of toss it to him, and he comes back around. I think it was Pittman on the slant. Josh Downs coming around. You don't see that in the NFL too often. Like, that's kind of like a play that requires good ball handling, right? And it's something you see in backyard football or flag football. So I enjoyed seeing the Colts pull that off in the game. On the defensive side of the football, Jalen Jones made his return. I thought he looked excellent in his return. He just showed what he brings to the table and what I like about him so much. Physical at the line of scrimmage, great with his hands, plays with a chip on his shoulder. And there was just not many moments where you watched him and said, wow, he's at a disadvantage there against a guy like DK Metcalf. I thought he put a lot of questions about what he was going to look like in his return off of that huge layoff on the hamstring injury to rest. I mean, he looked great in this game. He got the one penalty where he kind of got in there a little bit on DK because DK was sort of fucking with Kenny Moore a little bit. Listen, did I think he went a tad too far? Clearly, because he got the penalty. But ultimately, I don't hate him starting that thing off and saying, hey, I'm going to stick up for my guy. I mean, you have to understand, Jalen Jones is a fiery competitor. If you've ever been to training camp, you know that he'll get in the fight with Michael Pittman Jr. in there. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's a guy. That's part of who he is. That's part of what's made him successful in this league. Keep in mind, that's a seventh-round pick. He doesn't have all the physical tools. He's a guy that has overachieved. He's a serial overachiever. And part of that is that competitive fervor that he has, right? So I don't mind that. I like that Jalen Jones brings that to the team. He brings a little bit of the, right? He brings a little bit of the nasty to this defense. Jalen Jones, I thought, looked good in this game. And I was really, really excited to kind of see him just get right back into rhythm here. I mean, he was definitely healthy coming in there. So I think he's a huge addition to this defense moving forward. Another thing on the defensive side of the ball, what a great stop on that muffed punt from Josh Downs, who was kind of filling in for Anthony Gould, who, again, had been the punt returner all season long. This was probably the defense's best series of the season. The Steelers started at the Colts' 11-yard line and walked away with 0 points on the board. In fact, the drive then that the Colts got on offense, they took over at their own 5, was on its way to being a masterful drive. Like, they had 10-plus plays. They were taking off all types of clock. And then, of course, there was the strip sack from TJ Watt. But that was kind of a moment where quickly, if without the turnover, that was a great complimentary football moment from the Indianapolis Colts, just in a vacuum right there. Finally, on the defensive side of the ball, Laiatu Latu made his presence felt in this one. 2.5 sacks, disruptive all day. And he's a guy I've been saying since this offseason, We talk about the need for a pass rusher on this team, and I'm not saying we couldn't use one. Laiatu Latu, if he at any point takes that next step as a player in this league, it completely changes the way that you view this defense. And that is not something, by the way, that has to happen in the offseason. Like, yes, that's when you build your skills, but in terms of your production in game, that can click at any point. In fact, oftentimes that clicks mid-season as you just get more game reps, right? There's still a lot of season left, so I'm curious to see if he could build on that, because as the season goes on, if he starts ascending even more, and then you start getting some guys back on the defensive side of the football in Charvarius Ward, even a Samson Ebukam, who I'm not really a huge fan of at this juncture, but he helps. It doesn't hurt, right? Tyquan Lewis comes in there. We'll see kind of how JTT, Tua Mawalu, fits in there as those guys start to come back. But, for me, I thought overall, kind of the best game of the season on defense for the Indianapolis Colts, considering the disadvantage that the offense put them in, right? So all in all, the Colts lose a game that they were in for the majority of it, despite having 6 turnovers, which is more turnovers in one game than they had all year. And that is what it is, right? We're 7-2. We move on to Germany. Deep breath. We relax, touch some grass, and move on to next week. But that was an episode. My name is Justin. This right here is the Riding the Bench Colts podcast. Like, subscribe if you have not yet. And as always, go Colts.